Hi, it's me, Tim Dodd, the Everyday Astronaut. Good morning, everybody. Hopefully you guys are ready for a record-setting launch this morning. This is going to be really interesting. This is kind of a new era for SpaceX of doing these huge, throwing a bunch of satellites on a Falcon 9 and shoot them off into space type of deal. So we definitely have some stuff to talk about. So let's go ahead and pop on over to a certain website called everydayastronaut.com. Now, of course, anytime you guys have any questions about upcoming rocket launches, you can just go to everydayastronaut.com, click on upcoming launches, and you'll get a good sense of what's going to be happening before the launch, so that you can kind of be informed and get all your little questions answered, because we often see the same questions like, hey, where's this one launching, or what's it launching today, or where is it landing? So, yeah, you can just go to everydayastronaut.com anytime you have those questions. And so let's go through this one today here. This one's going to be taking off. This is going to be taking off today, hopefully. Really hopefully, guys. You need to please cross your fingers that this thing launches today, because Ryan Chelinsky from Cosmic Perspective, who controls the telescope that we had for SN8 and that we've used in the past quite a bit, he has to be at this mission under contract. So hopefully it goes off today, because if it goes off today, he's jumping in the car and driving for 2 days to get back down here to South Texas so that we can use his services and his beautiful footage, and he'll be able to be here to film SN9's flight, hopefully, as well. So we really hope that this thing does take off this morning. So this is the mission name for this is Transporter 1, which is SpaceX's first dedicated rideshare mission. Now, again, the company that's launching this is, of course, a SpaceX rocket, and the company is SpaceX. Now, the customer who's paying for this, now notice there's SpaceX in here. We'll get to that in 1 second. And then there's just a ton of, just an insane amount of satellites. And there is a little asterisk here saying, please note the satellites aboard are constantly changing. Satellites could be added or removed up until encapsulation. So we think this is pretty much, the final. They're not going to take anything down now, but there was some shuffling, because this is kind of, they're treating this as almost like a school bus or some kind of bus where it's like, hey, if you're not on this thing, sorry, you're not going to space today. You're buying a ride, and it might not be the first opportunity if you're not ready. So the cool thing is they're planning to do these launches every quarter. So if you do miss this launch, the idea is that you can then ride on the next one. So the rocket today is a Falcon 9 Block 5. This is B1058-5, which last flew 48 days ago. So that would have been almost record breaking, except for it would have been record breaking actually, because I think the previous turnaround was 51. But obviously just the other day we had 37. So it's not quite as, was there 33? I don't remember, but anyway, it's not quite record-breaking, but it's definitely showing that trend of seeing these rockets fly more and more often with less and less turnaround time in between them, which is something awesome. The payload mass for this is about 5,000 kilograms, so about 11,000 pounds. Where are these satellites going? These are going into a 500-kilometer Sun-Synchronous Orbit, or SSO. Now, let's see. Hang on. I just heard a little bit of comms chatter. That's good. I kind of missed what they said, though. Let me make sure that my audio is set up here right. Sorry, I had to do quite a few things here. All right, so we'll listen in here and see if we get more comms chatter, because I missed that one. Couldn't tell if they said that they're actually 38-day turnaround was the last record. So anyway, a sun-synchronous orbit is the kind that will stay in an orbit relative to between the Earth and the Sun. It still really confuses me, but basically you put it into a beyond polar orbit just slightly, and because of orbital mechanics and something really weird and the way the sun pulls on it and stuff, it'll actually stay in that exact orbit lined up with the sun perfectly, so that basically every day you're passing, every spot that you're passing underneath you will always be illuminated by the sun in the exact same way. So it's great for satellite imagery because shadows don't move across the ground. You're not flying around the Earth and seeing half the stuff in shadows, or half the shadows this way and half the shadows that way on your next image, on your next pass. It's the sun. It's illuminated the exact same every single time. So pretty cool. Real quick, I do need to say happy birthday to Theo. Holy cow, who got a telescope for his birthday in Discord. That's awesome. Happy birthday, Theo. All right, so they will be attempting to recover the first stage. Yes, they are. They are going... Oh, and I should remember, too, a Sun-Synchronous Orbit is a type of polar orbit, basically. So this is going to be another one of those missions where they're flying into a polar orbit from Kennedy Space Center. Now, the reason that's a big deal is normally you can't fly over land, right? And to get into a polar orbit, you normally go north, or like straight north or straight south, pretty much, ish. And so that's why they normally take off from California, because California kind of has this little, jet out like this, and you can fly straight south and not overfly any land, any populated areas. And when you do that from Kennedy Space Center, you're normally limited, because if you fly north, you're going to fly over Florida and Georgia and all these other states. If you fly south, you're going to fly over Florida and Cuba and all these other places too. But they started doing this thing just earlier this year where they're going to be doing polar orbits from Kennedy Space Center. They go out a little bit and kind of do this dog-leg maneuver and actually thread the needle between a couple different islands. And it's pretty amazing. So this is going to be another one of those missions. So sorry, Vandenberg, but Florida is taking some of your business here. Sorry if that was super loud, but we do have some SpaceX music. I'm gonna keep going here, guys. So this is going to be landing 553 kilometers downrange on, of course, I Still Love You. There's the tug Finn Folgut and the support ship Go Searcher. Will they be attempting to recover the fairings? Fairing recover is expected. They do have Go Mystery and Go Mischief are about 600 kilometers downrange. These are new fairings. The weather was currently 80% go as of January 19th, so that was a couple days ago, but I think it's down to 60 now. Sorry, I probably should have refreshed this. This is the most satellites ever flown at 143. First, oh yeah, this is fun. There are still 10 Starlink satellites in this stack. So it goes 10 Starlink satellites, then basically 133 other satellites stuck on top of like a corn cob or something. I have no idea how they're shoving this many in there. But 10 of these satellites are Starlink, and they're going into a polar orbit. Normally, Starlink satellites are like a 57-degree inclination or something more like, at an angle. These Starlink satellites will be going straight over the poles pretty much. So that's awesome. It'll help eventually add coverage to the poles. So even places like the South Pole Station in Antarctica will eventually be able to have coverage. And you can put these in a higher orbit so that, a single set of 10 Starlink satellites would be able to cover it, just a little bit higher orbit. But I think that's pretty cool. It's the first, so the first Starlink mission is to go to the polar satellite. First mission ever with Go Searcher as a ASDS, so an autonomous spaceport drone ship support. Second fastest turnaround of a booster at 48 days. First Falcon 9 launch with a transfer stage. Yeah, because there is this weird transfer stage. I bet SpaceX will talk about that a little bit too. It's a weird transfer stage. It doesn't even have any propulsion, so it kind of confuses me. This is the first SpaceX dedicated rideshare mission. 106th Falcon 9 launch. 52nd reflight of a booster. So here we go, guys. We're only, 8 more away or 9 more away from having more boosters reflown than flown for the first time. That's a huge milestone. 73rd booster landing. 42nd landing attempt on, of course, I Still Love You. First autonomous spaceport drone ship landing in the polar corridor, so going south. This is the 23rd consecutive landing, which is a new record for SpaceX. Third launch already for SpaceX in 2021. That's pretty amazing. And the 63rd SpaceX launch from Slick 40. So I don't even remember if I said that, where it's launching from. But it is launching, I forgot to say that one. Space Launch Complex, Slick 40s, in other words. And don't forget, Space Launch Complex means that it is at the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. If it just said LC or Launch Complex, that would be at NASA's Kennedy Space Center. So yeah, we're looking good here. I'm going to go ahead and pull up the mission here real quick so we can watch together. And I'll be getting to some of you guys' comments here in just a second. So Let me make sure that we are pulling in from HD, so we're not giving you guys non-quality schmuck here, right? Okay, so we'll pay attention here and see when they go live. It should be about any minute. And again, guys, all of the fingers and toes crossed that this does launch today so that we can get Ryan Shalinsky back out here. New member, thank you so much, the Cola. I appreciate that. Maria R says, get Tim some coffee. You know what I need? I forgot my water, and that's very necessary. Musical Wolves. Could SpaceX use ocean water to cool the ocean launcher pad during a launch? Also, my 94-year-old grandfather is really close to passing, so you might miss hop. Oh, man, I'm really sorry to hear that, Musical Wolves. I hope not, obviously, and I hope that your family handles that transition okay, because that can be very, very tough, and I'm really sorry to hear that. Our thoughts will be with you, Musical Wolves. And, you know, if you do miss the launch, you can always watch the replay. It can be something to help brighten your day. It'll always be there. So make sure you're present with your family during that time, and don't take that bit of time for granted. So I'm really sorry to hear that. And one more here from Jalen says, hey, Tim, at Jetty Park right now, first launch ever. Been watching you for years right now. Rest in peace, spacesuit days. Getting my engineering degree this fall because of you and SpaceX. Let's light this candle. That is awesome. I really, really hope that the weather clears up because it sounds like it's quite foggy. I don't know what it is with fog because it's foggy here at Boca Chica too. So
good morning. It's Saturday,
good luck. Here we go, guys.
23rd, and we're here at SpaceX's headquarters in Hawthorne, California. You're looking at a live view of Falcon 9 as it awaits its 9:40 a.m. Eastern Time launch from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida. My name is Andy Tran, and I'm a production supervisor here at SpaceX. Welcome to the webcast for SpaceX's Transporter-1 mission. It's our first dedicated small-sat rideshare program launch and third launch of 2021. On board this mission are 133 commercial and government spacecraft, in addition to 10 Starlink satellites, the most spacecraft ever deployed on a single mission. This count includes CubeSats, microsats, and 2 orbital transfer vehicles, sometimes called space tugs, which would deploy their spacecraft after separating from Falcon 9. SpaceX created the SmallSat rideshare program to provide SmallSat operators with competitive pricing, increased flight opportunities, flexibility, and most importantly, a ride to space on SpaceX's Falcon 9, Falcon Heavy, as well as Starship in the not-too-distant future. For more details on our rideshare program or to reserve your spot, head over to our website at spacex.com/rideshare. Now let's take a look at Falcon 9 out on the pad at the Cape. You're looking at a live view of Falcon 9, our 70-meter, 2-stage liquid-fueled launch vehicle. Today's mission is the 5th flight for this particular booster. Its first 4 flights were all in 2020 and included our Crew Dragon Demo 2 mission for NASA in May, the Anasis 2 mission in July, a Starlink mission in October, and most recently CRS-21 in December. You can tell by the re-entry soot at the bottom of the vehicle that this booster has flown before. That bottom 2/3 of the vehicle is the first stage. Its objective is to accelerate the vehicle through the Earth's atmosphere into space and then separate from the rest of the rocket. From there, it will make its way back to Earth and target a landing on our recovery vessel, Of Course I Still Love You, which is our drone ship in the Atlantic Ocean. There it is on screen. On top of the first stage is the black carbon fiber inner stage. This is a composite material, and it houses the larger nozzle of the second stage engine. Then on top of that is the payload. Then on top of the inner stage is the Falcon 9 second stage, which takes the payload to its eventual destination in orbit. After the first stage separates about 2.5 minutes into flight, the second stage will then carry the 143 spacecraft to orbit. And in order to get the intended orbit today, we'll need to light our second stage twice before deploying all of our payloads. At the very top of the rocket, you'll notice a large nose cone. This is called the fairing. It's a composite structure and protects the rocket from the forces of ascent and houses the payloads. Once the vehicle is outside of the Earth's atmosphere, the fairing separates to expose the satellites to space. For today's mission, our fairing is brand new. Our recovery vessel, Miss Chief, there it is on screen, will be attempting to recover the fairing halves from the water following landing.
Just the water. Damn.
And finally, the large truss structure next to Falcon 9 is called the Transporter Erector. We also refer to it as the TE. Its job is to roll Falcon 9 out to the launch pad, raise it to a vertical launch position, and also route power, fluids, and communication to both the rocket and the satellite. It will retract away from the rocket slightly at around the T-minus 4.5 minute mark, providing clearance for Falcon 9 to lift off. The chief engineer held a technical poll at T-minus 1 hour mark, and the launch director held a propellant load and launch go-no-go poll at the T-minus 38 minute mark. If we do have a call to hold today's launch, we do have a backup opportunity tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern. We are currently red on weather for surface electrical fields. We'll keep a close eye on that as we count down, but weather is looking a little dicey for our current liftoff time. Falcon 9 has been loading propellants since the T-minus 35 minute mark. The vehicle uses a refined form of kerosene called RP1 for its fuel and super chilled liquid oxygen, or LOX, as its oxidizer. Currently, RP1 is fully loaded on the second stage and nearly fully loaded on the first stage. Liquid oxygen loading is currently underway as well. Helium load also began before the webcast went live and will continue to top off until a minute and a half before launch. We use this helium to pressurize the tanks as the propellant is pulled out by the engine pumps. In about a minute, at the T-minus 7 minute mark, engine chilling will begin. This is where we allow a small amount of super chilled liquid oxygen to flow into the Merlin engine turbopumps prior to the full flow of LOX to avoid any thermal shocks to the system. And then a few minutes from now, checkouts of the second stage thrust vector control actuators will be underway. This is also known as the engine wiggle test. We move the thrust chamber slightly to make sure that the guidance hardware is a go for flight. This happens on the first stage engines as well, and those happens just seconds before ignition. The vehicle is healthy, and we are currently working no issues. The range is standing by to support. Again, the weather is red, but we'll continue to monitor that all the way until T0 to see if we get a chance for liftoff today. All systems continue to go for a liftoff at 9:40 a.m. Eastern time.
Man, I really hope this goes today. We need it. So I do want to confirm real quick in this shot, you can see quite clearly that the pointy end is up, the flaming end is down. Orientation check is done. Hopefully they weren't waiting on that mission control from me. And I did want to answer, Musical Wolves had one more point asking, can they use ocean water to cool the ocean launcher pad during launch? So that's actually one of the cool things is if you do use a sea launch platform, basically the booster, when it's launching, you can just have a giant hole in your platform, and by igniting the engines over water, it can absorb a lot of that sound energy because it'll just turn the water into steam, or phase change it and absorb quite a bit of energy. So you can kind of bypass a fancy water deluge system because you're already deluging your sound and sound suppression with water. So
hey, just getting word from the team. So it's official. We are scrubbing today for weather, for surface electrical fields. We do have a backup opportunity tomorrow at 10 a.m. So we'll see you then and attempt another launch for Transporter 1.
Crap. Well, dang it, guys. Oh. No. Oh, man. Yep, let's see those F's in chat, because that's going to be... All right. While we're doing that, let's go ahead and answer a few more of you guys' questions here. Then I'll get out of here. And, yeah, there's been some bad luck here lately. It's... jeez. All right. The mill says, if a rocket is landing at sea, shouldn't we call it a seeing? Instead of a landing? I don't know if that's exactly how that works, but maybe that's exactly what we should be doing. Mitch has a pair character with a Shaka sign. Thank you so much for the emoji. Let me make sure I cancel this so we don't have a bunch of other stuff playing on YouTube. All right. Thank you very much, Mitch. Innocent Raptor, approaching 5,000 patrons. We are halfway there. We are getting scarily close to halfway. I never thought that was going to happen. I thought that was a huge joke. I wrote when I first set up Patreon that if I got to 10,000 subscribers, I'd buy a ride to space. I am deeply regretting that now because I still don't really have a desire to go to space per se. Yeah, it's kind of scary. I guess it'd make a good video, especially if I am just mortified. Like, please don't make me go, and I'm just crying the whole way. Oh, yeah, that would be That would be interesting. So, yeah, I guess if you want to help me not live my dreams, go to patreon.com/everydayastronaut. From Argonaut, hi, do you think all Hall thrusters like the X3 will ever see use as a primary propulsion in the future? I do. I think that, any of those, any ion propulsion or anything like that, Hall thrusters, just another propulsion, electric propulsion similar to that. They always just have a very low thrust to weight ratio, so they're not ideal for human rated missions or human missions because you're kind of just sitting there waiting for a long time, like months and months. It just doesn't always, it normally doesn't make any sense for human transportation, but it makes sense, like, on the gateway, the lunar gateway, to be able to have an ion thruster like that, or a Hall thruster or something similar. I have to admit, I don't really know the exact difference between a Hall thruster and an ion thruster, although I'm pretty sure a Hall thruster is just a specific type of ion thruster. But and I've read about the X3 a little bit, but I don't exactly recall what makes it advantageous or what its properties are compared to a more traditional ion thruster. But I mean, I definitely just think that I would like to see it used more, especially if we could figure out a way to increase the thrust to weight ratio. But Andy Law in our Discord says Hall thrusters uses the Hall effect in physics. It's still just a type of ion drive. But again, the thrust to weight ratio, you're not really going to use it for interplanetary missions or anything, because it's, in order to raise your orbit enough and just actually get to Mars and back. Although it can work really well for a light payload or something, you can decrease your time a lot. But if you're having to, say you're in Leo and you're trying to get out to Mars, you have to keep doing these burns, these long burns at your lowest point, your periapsis, and raise your altitude every single orbit until you eventually break free from Earth's gravity and end up orbiting the sun, and you keep burning. I mean, it's a long process, but it's a long process. But I would love to see it. Like I said, we will see ion drives at least on Lunar Gateway, which would be allows people to be able to, that allows NASA or Mission Control to be able to change the orbit slightly of the Gateway very efficiently. Jared Cleveland, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Musical Wolves FAA now issues TFRs of the fog returns. It feels, I don't know what it is. Here, I can't hardly even see Starship from here. I don't know why things are so freaking foggy lately, but we really need them to not be. We really, really, really need them to not be foggy. Yes, that is the ultimate question. Did James tweet in our Discord? Because if James tweets, anything he says ends up coming true, and that's scary. Nicola, thank you so much for that. I appreciate that. Scouse says, keep it up, Tim. I always look forward to your next content on your channel and streams. I also love the Max Q album you released. So chill and upbeat. Well, thank you very much. Yeah, for those of you that don't know or remember, the music at the beginning and outro of these live streams and any music you've ever heard in any of my songs is original. You can find most of it on iTunes and Spotify. I need to follow up with the producer and see where the 27 Merlins finally is. I should definitely get that out for. I'll be too late already for February. Jeez. But yeah. If you want to check out some music and have some kind of chill music, go to iTunes or Spotify and look up Everyday Astronaut. Jared says, good morning from Spokane, Washington. Oh, Spokane. I've always thought it was Spokane. Well, now I know. I'll say it just like a local next time. Spokane. Thank you for that. Let's see here. This is from Old Jabo. Once again, thank you for the live tour. Great. Well, I'm glad that that part worked out. The car accident at the end when I was off air was not fun. But yeah. Choco later says, check your watch. It's SpaceX o'clock. It's SpaceX scrub o'clock, unfortunately, today. But thank you very much, Choco later. Pietro says, hi Tim from Italy. Question 1, do you think moving from RD-180 to BE-4 in Atlas V is just a political reason or more? Second, when Soviet era engines come out? So the BE-4 will be flying in Vulcan. It won't fly in the Atlas V, but it's still it's a similar rocket, but it's quite a bit bigger and quite a bit more powerful too. I think people don't quite understand how capable Vulcan will be. Vulcan will be extremely capable. And I think I don't know. There was definitely political motivation. John McCain had a lot of sanctions against Russia for a little bit, and really did not want us using Russian engines. So there's definitely some political motivation there. The BE-4 is a fantastic engine for methalox. They're really publicly or like commercially available. There really is no other orbital class methalox engine available. So yeah, I definitely think I think it's kind of maybe a little bit of a mix. There's probably some pressure to switch to something else, but I think also that they made a decision based on what was the best use case for them, and that's turned out to be the BE-4. And then as far as my Soviet era engines video, no idea. I'm still down here in Boca Chica. I'm going to be here for, I have no idea how much longer. Yeah, I don't know. Things don't really get done here like they do at home, just because we're constantly working on things and making plans and changing plans and all that stuff. So, it's definitely a one it's done situation. Since this one is so long and it's so important to get this one right, we have just made sure that we're not rushing it, obviously. And it's like, I think 27 pages. So this will be probably about an hour and a half video, but it will be the most comprehensive, most linear timeline of engines that came out of the Soviet Union and currently now Russia and Ukraine. So the former Soviet Union. So we're getting close. We're really getting close. There is a small chance we might slip just one more in there in between the nothingness that is right now, just pure launch live streams and that video, just because it's going to be huge to edit. It's going to be like the longest, most difficult video to edit too by a lot. Zachary, is there a number on how much they saved reusing rockets so far? We do not have any those numbers publicly at all. That's internal SpaceX accounting only. It's safe to say that they are saving money on the booster recovery, or else they would not be doing it. They're already the cheapest, and they are going down even more and more in price. So I don't know how much they're saving, but it definitely seems like they are saving money, and it's pretty awesome. Yeah. Max Mantley says, glad to see this mission launch. A close friend of mine integrated a few satellites on site at Cape Canaveral. That's awesome. And also thanks for your videos. Well, you're welcome, Max. That's very, very cool. Yeah, when there's 143 satellites on board, there's definitely a lot of hands. It's pretty amazing. I can't imagine how hard it would be to actually do all those integrations and do all the logistics for 143 different satellites. And we should mention that is, we'll probably mention this tomorrow when we restream again, but that would have been it's the most, and the next most was ISRO launched 104 satellites, I think, in like 2017 or something like that. So yeah. This is from Sulphase. Hello, Tim. Super happy to see you cover this big launch. I was part of the team that made 5 of these satellites. That is so awesome. I love there's so many people that actually worked on this. That is very, very cool. So congrats. Hopefully we get this thing off the ground tomorrow. I'm going to have to be planning a lot to see how exactly and weigh out our odds of being able to get Ryan out here. So, yep. Wish us luck. Hopefully it goes off tomorrow, though, for all of our sake. Frank, thank you so much for the membership. More Darren says, hey, Tim, I'm with the 45th Space Wing and provide security for launches on Canaveral on my day off. I'm as close as you can get, and weather sucks. Yes. You predicted the future there, More, but thank you so much for saying hi, and hopefully the weather does not suck tomorrow. I did want to answer this question real quick. McGaming says, isn't that quite a competitor to Rocket Lab and the Electron rocket? Well, see, that's kind of one of the things that Electron sells is that, you can, it's kind of like riding a city bus versus an Uber, right? An Uber is more expensive than a bus, but it can get you there exactly to your destination and exactly on time. Like, that rocket is dedicated for you. You aren't waiting on other payloads. You're not waiting for the next launch in the next quarter. If you miss this, like this one, if you miss this, you're waiting at least 3 months. And Rocket Lab's idea is, hey, you hire us and we'll fly you, period. And we'll take you to exactly where you need to go. So, that's definitely, I think this could be kind of encroaching on some of those small satellites. but I think there's still going to be a demand for a dedicated rideshare, or not rideshare, but dedicated launch service, and being able to have some of that flexibility and some of those offerings that you can really only get when you have your own rocket. Luke Dreyer says, up and away, what brand of glasses are you wearing? Go Team Space. Well, thank you, Luke. These are from William Painter. The company's good, the owner is a good friend of mine, and I've been very happy with my William Painter glasses. Yeah, not sponsored, just happy. I don't really do, if you can't tell, I don't really do sponsorships. I don't know. I feel like that's unnecessary. Although I'm starting to think I probably should just be doing stupid like Raid Shadows or whatever. Like all these ads, or I made a thing on Squarespace, even though I didn't make a thing on Squarespace or something, because you could probably buy a lot more gear and make a lot better videos with said gear if I just did like one of those a year. It's so ridiculous. It is, honestly, the amount of money they pay people is so stupid. So stupid. I just feel dumb doing it. Vin Smoke says, can the accumulation of soot affect the rocket over time? Love this channel. I'm watching from Wellington, New Zealand. 3:30 a.m. Have a good launch. Well, sorry that it wasn't a launch. Yeah, I don't really know. The soot on the outside, I don't know exactly. You'd expect that it would, change the thermal conductivity of the rocket because it's now getting darker. It has the option of absorbing more sunlight on a sunny day. But I don't really know what else is so they do have to like clean some off when they're doing scans of the booster. And yeah, I don't really know. I don't know what the exact effect of it is. Obviously, we've seen one fly 8 times now successfully. So obviously 8 times doesn't affect it as much as people probably thought, I guess. Still seems to be performing fine. Again, these Falcon 9 Block 5 boosters are designed to fly up to 10 times. That's their design goal. And it looks like they're definitely, they definitely have been kind of nailing those. So we'll see. Hopefully we'll see a lot of these fly at 10. So, yeah. This is from CLRD 4T0. Hi, Tim. I'm an aerospace university student, and you ignited heat puns my interest in rockets and other aircraft. Thanks, and keep it up. Love from HK. That is awesome. Well, thank you so much. And again, best of luck in school. Please kick some butt so that you can help us just do more awesome things in space. That is awesome. Justin S., keep up the great work, Tim. I really wish I had a question, but I can't think of any. Rest in peace, Larry King. Did Larry King die? I missed that. Interesting. Very interesting. All right, this is I'm sorry to hear that. Dang. That's crazy. Leon Jones 12. Are most satellites small enough to participate in a rideshare type launch? Has Falcon 9 ever launched something that needed the entire fairing for itself? Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of Falcon 9 missions. I don't know about volume, if it totally filled the volume of the fairing. I feel like it's very rare that the volume of the fairing actually gets utilized. But most satellites are not small enough. That's more of a recent thing. Satellites traditionally are huge, like literally school bus size satellites. And these days, there's definitely been a trend to smaller and smaller and smaller satellites, as you can imagine, because things like smartphones are getting smaller and smaller, and electronics are getting smaller and smaller. You don't need to carry this huge school bus sized vehicle up to do some things. Now, of course, for some communication and certain things, you just physically need that size to power, antennas and things like that. But yeah, but as far as the Falcon 9 having, are most satellites small enough to participate in rideshare? I would say these days the overwhelming number probably are small enough to do that, but there's still ones that aren't. And traditionally, the Falcon 9 has not launched, tons of satellites like this. Most of the time, it is a single satellite or maybe 2. So, yeah. Brian, thank you for your membership. Jared Cleveland, bruh moment. Sorry. And yeah, hopefully, hopefully we get to see launch tomorrow. John Luke says, will there ever be a point where weather wouldn't affect launch in the future? Could advancements in technologies help? So, John, that's one of those things that Elon has mentioned a bunch with Starship, is that they want Starship to be able to launch in any condition or the same conditions as an airplane, and maybe even beyond an airplane, because you get out of the weather within, all discernible weather within about a minute. You're clear of 99% of the atmosphere at that point. So, your amount of weather that the time for your mission where the weather actually matters and affects your flight is very small compared to a plane where weather can affect your flight almost the entire journey. And even when you're at cruising altitude, sometimes you still have to fly around storm systems. So it's not like you're not prone to weather conditions even at cruising altitude in a jetliner. You're still having to avoid or plan and do things to not fly through certain conditions. So in theory, rockets could actually be less prone to weather. But right now, we just still are in this era where unless you're Russia and you just they seem to just launch the Soyuz like no matter what, pretty much. Like I don't think they even hardly track whether they just launch it. I think there will be something like that where they just slowly expand the envelope on what's safe. A vehicle like Starship being much larger is less affected by wind, relatively speaking, because it's a heavier vehicle. Obviously, the same amount of wind pushing a large heavy vehicle versus a small light vehicle. Although a lot of it does depend on the cross section and how much surface area the rocket has. But in general, again, something that has more mass will be harder for wind to push around. So, all right, this is from Joey. Are they giving up on catching fairings? It seems like they have not tried catching the fairings lately. I don't know if they're giving up on it, but it definitely does. They still have the nets up most of the time, though. So, yeah, maybe that's just to protect the crew from the fairing falling from the sky because those are still really heavy. But it does kind of feel like they're not trying to catch them anymore. But all right, this is from Derek Ross. Would you be willing to make an in-depth video about what SpaceX is planning to do with Phobos? Maybe. I feel like that's something that What About It and Marcus House and a lot of the other people that cover stuff weekly or multi times in a week, they cover that type of stuff so often that I feel like until we have more information, it'd just be pure speculation. Like, hey, they're going to make this a launch pad. And then from there on out, it's like, what do you say that's definitive? You guys know me. I don't like to speculate. I try to really only just tell you about things that I can do in-depth research on, and especially answer some of those questions, because that's one of those things that will tell its own answer really quickly. When we see it built, we'll just know what it looks like and how it operates. I mean, there still could be some teachable moments there, but I try not to be like, okay, so here's what they could do. They could do this, because it just feels like, I don't know, especially when it's still in the phase where SpaceX is probably still trying to figure that out. It just feels to me like it'd be a video of pure speculation and just not of. I find that my time is better spent breaking stuff down that is already kind of hard to figure out, and instead of just playing the speculation game. So, yeah. From Jake, is it worth going to Boca Chica if there isn't a hop imminent? Thinking about going when I get my tax refund. Well, Jake, I definitely have to say it's a rare opportunity in life to be able to drive up to a rocket. Like, that is very rare. I felt like I was extremely privileged when for DM2 because of the pandemic, I got to actually drive my car out onto Launchpad 39A, and even there I was still like 1,200 meters away or something. It's 300 meters away. 300 or 400 meters. It's still a long ways away, right? You're still, even though you're inside the pad complex, that pad complex is so big, my car and I never got closer than like 300 or 400 meters away. Here you can literally drive 100 meters away on a public road next to a rocket. So that is something to not be taken for granted. So, yeah. Let's see. So, yeah, as far as that stuff goes, I definitely think it is worth going to Boca Chica at some point before that is not available. Because I have a feeling, personal speculation here, but I just don't think it makes tons of sense to have that still be a public road. Again, people are flying up and down it, as you know, because my car got smoked. People are just absolutely cruising up and down that highway. The speed limit's 55 right there. And some people just don't care. There's employees walking across the highway constantly. I have a feeling that SpaceX is going to want to try to bypass it somehow, have a public bypass or something. And I just don't think, if something like that happens, you just won't have the opportunity to get as close as you can now. So, yeah. Greg Beasley Jr., what kind of testing, design considerations or whatever would be required to launch in more inclement weather like we're seeing in Florida and Texas? Yeah, Greg, we kind of did talk about this a second ago, but really I think larger vehicles will help with that. And I think eventually just accepting a little bit more risk at some point, like just saying, All right. So what happens if we get struck by lightning, or what happens if this huge wind shear comes? I do think that, of course, that Starship is so large, it is girthier, so its fineness ratio is it's wider than it is, or not wider than it is tall, but compared to the Falcon 9, it's much wider compared to how tall it is, so that ratio. And I would say at that point, it's already going to be less prone to things like wind shears in the upper altitudes and things like that. So, yeah, I think we'll see it expand, and I do hope that we see launches happen almost no matter what, regardless of weather. So that's just my hope. John, thank you so much for the pair. I appreciate that. Sam Thomas, what will happen with so much space debris when all these satellites become obsolete after their time? Won't it hit Starship while it crosses? So not just Starship, but anything going into orbit. That's, of course, a big concern. But luckily, at 500 kilometers in altitude, a lot of them will deorbit within a couple years. So, and a lot of satellites these days are deorbiting themselves at the end of their mission. So, of course, if something happens and they lose contact and they lose control of the spacecraft, sure, it could. But people forget, like, yes, 143 satellites, or there's going to be 20,000 Starlink terminals or Starlink satellites at some point, or 40 or whatever it is. And yeah, it's a ton, and you definitely need to make considerations for it. But people do forget. Think about how big the Earth is. Think about like how big a house is. Think about what 40,000 houses look like, right? 40,000 houses would be, a okay-ish sized city, right? Like a little city, a large town, a little city. Now imagine spreading those out throughout the entire Earth, the entire Earth, and not just the Earth is 2D really, and obviously not actually 2D, but as far as where you can put houses, it's more or less, especially for this illustration, it's two-dimensional. You're not going to be having a house 17 kilometers above another house. It's just going to be pretty much these 40,000 houses will be speckled throughout the Earth. Now imagine that you can also stack them, and you can have them at varying altitudes where you don't have the risk of interference. And think about how far away like a kilometer actually is. If you're something small like a washing machine sized item, and it's a kilometer away from the next one, even if they're on different orbits, I mean that's close in relative terms, but super far away in real life too. So, so yeah, Tim just invented skyscrapers. Hey, I was speaking specifically of houses. But yeah, so that's yeah. Hey, hold on here. This is awesome. Frank Boyce. No way. That is really weird. I was actually just talking about Frank Boyce last night, who we grew up together. So hi, Frank and Katie and your family. I definitely need to see you guys here soon. I hope that's something that we can do. But yeah, I was just talking about Frank because Frank was the only person that I knew that went to the Air Force Academy to play basketball. I don't think I know anyone else that goes to the Air Force and plays. I didn't know it was an option to go to the Air Force and play a sport. But thank you for saying hi, the Boyces. I miss you guys, and hopefully in the near future that is something that we can do. That's awesome. Sean Dabble says, wish us luck tomorrow. Sean and Mandy hope to see the launch of their baby's ashes on board as part of Celestis. Oh my gosh. Thanks for the coverage. No way. Sean and Mandy. Wow. Okay, so this takes a little explanation. That's absolutely crazy. Well, first off, thank you for saying hi. Second off, best of luck. I can't imagine the emotional roller coaster that's going to be. But the company that they're talking about, Celestis, has a satellite on board which will take ashes of loved ones up into space, which I think is maybe one of the most beautiful sentiments ever. Like, imagine just ascension, just seeing a rocket carrying, your loved one into space. Like, that's really, 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 really powerful to actually stop and think about. Just visually, just a rocket launch is already something that's emotional. It's you feel it. There's a lot of it's just this whole sights and sounds and everything about it is already pretty overwhelming, and I can't imagine what that's going to be like. So I hope that you guys wow, I don't even know what to say. I'm at a loss for words, and I'm so sorry to hear about the loss of a baby, especially, man. But yeah, we'll all be thinking of you guys tomorrow. So Sean and Mandy, space community, space fam, we're here for you, and terribly sorry to hear that, but that is going to be beautiful, and I hope that that send off is peaceful and beautiful. And I'm frankly, in this sense, glad it didn't happen today, then, because I don't think you would have seen it, no matter how close you are, pretty much. So, yeah, for you guys, I'm actually really, really glad that it's scrubbed, because hopefully tomorrow's a gorgeous day and we get a beautiful flight for you guys. And yeah, wow, that is awesome. And sad, but that is actually beautiful. So yes, again, Sean and Mandy, we love you, and we'll be with you tomorrow. Absolutely. Musical Wolves. Can you add when hop shirts for sale? Again, I try not to just do shirts that are like punny, or totally inside jokey. I do have, nominal and pointy end up flaming down, but I'm trying more or less for the shirts. The goal with merchandise for me is to make the engineering cool, like to take the work and the things that are nerdy and like, an aerospike engine, make things that are already engineered, that people spend decades on working on it and solving and tweaking and playing with. Help make that cool, right? When hop and stuff, like everyone's going crazy with when hop and when launch, but at the end of the day, that doesn't really help elevate and lift up. As a matter of fact, it almost, in a sense, a little bit trivializes the work being done. So that's my goal with anything that we're really doing here, is to celebrate and lift up the people that are doing the engineering and doing all of the all the groundwork, all the awesome things on the rocket and in space flight to make it all happen. And so I that's kind of been the point, is like to try to help actually like brand that as cool, right? Like quite literally the actual engineering, try to make that cool to help inspire people. So Casper Stanley, are you not familiar with we already have that, my friend. We've had that for a month, 2 months. Yeah, don't worry, that's done. We're way ahead of you. For those of you, sorry, not in Discord, you have no idea what we're talking about, but I'll show you guys. Brian DT, keep it up. Thanks for all your coverage. Hi from Toronto, Canada. Well, thank you so much, Brian. Thank you for saying hi. William G, appreciate what you're doing, brother. Keep it up. Well, thank you very much. Tapio says, for your terrifying future space flight, would you prefer New Shepard hop or an actual orbital SpaceX Dragonflight? At this point today, if it were me, I would probably rather just do like a New Shepard flight, because it's going to be way cheaper and, I'll say borderline affordable, right? I mean, just the cost of a house, like not what I would. I'll literally have to start saving money for that now, because in case Patreon does get to 10,000, then yeah, I will have had to purchase basically a house to fly. We don't even have the price on it, but I'm guessing it's around, Virgin Galactic's around $250,000. Yeah, I'm guessing that Blue Origin will be right around there. So, yeah, so for purely economical reasons, but also because I feel like it just would be so quick and easy and not as scary to me, yeah. I would probably rather do a little suborbital hop, just even for time. Floating around in space for 2 weeks would be awesome, but ain't nobody got time for that. Starship Matt, hi Tim. What are your thoughts on Brian Stein's departure, and what would you like to see from his successor? Starship, Matt, you definitely need to listen to this last week's episode of Our Ludicrous Future. I do a podcast every week. I talked a decent amount about Brian Stein's leaving. I've talked about it a little bit on some other things. It's definitely sad, because I really, really liked what he did. I do probably about a 5-minute rant on Our Ludicrous Future. So again, if you don't want to spell Our Ludicrous Future, because that's really hard to spell, just go to olfpod.com. Again, olfpod.com, and give a listen. Give this last week's episode. I had a ton to talk about last week. Virgin Orbit, the sea launch platform, the SN9 stuff. We had SLS stuff. We had Starliner news. I mean, wait, did I even talk about the Starliner news? I feel like I didn't talk about Starliner news. I was supposed to. I don't know. We had way too much to talk about. So if you want to hear my thoughts on that more in depth, definitely download that episode. But I'm really sad, because I thought he did a fantastic job of bridging the gap and kind of, yeah, he did great. He blew me out of the water. When he first got appointed, I was like, oh, great. You're a politician in charge of NASA. This is going to be terrible. But he knew how to politic, and he did a great job of, of kind of bringing in commercial space while not totally shunning and getting rid of all the old space. There is a transition period you have to create in order to not make this big void. And I thought he did a great job. So, will be missed. And I hope his successor really continues to push on the commercial space industry, start doing more and more and more fixed price contracts, no more cost plus please. And I hope, this might be an unpopular opinion. I do want to see a space station around the moon really bad. I want to see a lunar space station, but I don't think Gateway is the answer. Yeah. I just don't see much of a purpose in the Lunar Gateway. It does not seem like, I don't know. It just doesn't seem good. I don't know. I'm not sold on it yet. I'm just not sold on it yet. I'm sold on a lunar space station, but not a Lunar Gateway in near rectilinear halo orbit just to satisfy Orion and its orbit. But that's me. Pad Drake. Brady says, pity about the launch, but thanks for the coverage. I'll be here tomorrow for you guys. Don't worry, but thank you very much. The Angry Astronaut had Tim, in my honest opinion, the moon rock in the Oval Office and White House statement that the new administration is behind moon to Mars is significant. Thoughts? I only saw just a brief headline. I haven't had time to really read what the sentiment is, but I do think it sounds to me like there's going to be a fairly coherent. I mean, why wouldn't there be? If you were the Biden administration and you look at NASA's trajectory over the last 4 years, and you look at what's been accomplished, and hopefully the funding. The one thing I'm nervous about is funding, and it's not so much because of the party change. Traditionally, Democrats and Republicans both pretty much agree that NASA's good, and the funding's relatively similar, maybe plus or minus like 5% between party lines, and generally. But if there is a reason that NASA doesn't receive the funding that they would normally receive, it is because of the pandemic. I think a lot of resources will probably currently be put into things like, rolling out vaccines, helping economic recoveries, and just kind of putting into place a few things. And that might take a toll on something like NASA. So I would not be surprised if the budgets, for the next year or two aren't as good as we were hoping. And I don't think it has much to do with the administration per se. I think it has more to do with just the state of the times, right? But it does seem like to me, like so far everything I've been seeing and reading feels linear and coherent. And how can you not be happy with the trajectory that NASA's been on lately and the use of commercial partners? I mean, it just totally makes sense to me. So hopefully it just continues to go that way. And Paulus, thank you for letting me, reminder of Larry King. Again, I had no idea. I haven't even had time to process that. So sorry to Larry King's family. Our thoughts are with you. That's really, really too bad. And what a legend there. Philip Moyer, consolation money for breakfast, tequila and tacos. That sounds terrible, but thank you very much, Philip. I do appreciate that. Stuart Pollock, thank you so much. Juan says, any idea which serial number or starship number, this is saying serial number, will be the first fully complete starship, heat shield, cargo, crew, and all. Oh, man, if we're talking cargo, crew, and all, what about Super Heavy booster? I mean, so I cannot predict when serial number 9 is going to fly. I cannot predict when serial number 10 is going to fly, obviously, which is why I've been down here for weeks in an expensive hotel to be able to try to catch it. Predicting things like this is almost impossible, but it's going to be a long time, I think, before we see a fully decked out crew version. But as far as having an orbital version, let's say fully complete would be orbital, right? A fully orbital vehicle. I think serial number 17 or 18 could be the first one to try to go orbital. And I think the first booster that's going to be able to lift that would be like booster 3 or 4 already. So I think they'll do a couple smaller, not small scale, but small performance boosters with just a few engines, test out some of the things they need to test out. But then I think personally, I'm still thinking 2022 based on how much needs to be done at the pad to be able to support an orbital launch. Think about how big the ground infrastructure has to be. It'll have to be well over twice the size to be able to fill up super heavy and to totally top off Starship. I mean, we're talking about a lot of ground tanks. We'll have to see all of those there. And the whole launch tower has to be complete, the whole pad and all that stuff. It'll be a while, in my opinion. And even though Gwen Shotwell, the president and COO of SpaceX, even though she says Q3, which I trust her timelines a lot more than I trust Elon's. No offense, Elon. But when Elon says he wanted to go orbital, like I think he said he was going to go orbital by October of last year, and that was in like August. And I just kind of laughed when I saw it. I was like, "There's no way you're not going orbital in 2 months, 2-3 months." So, in my opinion, it'll be something like seal number 17, 18, and booster number 4 or 5 ish, and hopefully we see that next year. As far as crew, though, years away, and I do think that the first crewed missions will be they'll put it in orbit, and then they'll dock with it with something like Crew Dragon or something differently. Will be the first way that we see crew. So, all right. So, Superplex, is inspection or certification needed to launch a CubeSat? Yes, there is. You have to file with the FCC for anything transmitting, broadcast, anything. So you have to get FCC. We also have to say get stuff from the FAA. You have to get a license to fly. So yeah, there is some jurisdiction and and things that you need to actually consider. There's considerations to be able to fly anything to space. So yeah. Stuart Pollock, hey Tim, do you think that they will keep the rocket after its 10th launch and possibly do tests to push to see how many launches it could do past 10? I think it all depends on they know obviously the inside and outside of a Falcon 9. They know approximately, how is the fuselage looking? How are the grid fins and the hydraulic systems? Are they still holding it together? But in general though, I do think I don't know if it's necessary for them to really push it beyond 10. We'll see. That is their goal. But I feel like they probably have a better sense of that than any of us do. Obviously, I know they have a better sense of that than any of us. And they might fly more than 10 if things are looking good at 10. I don't think they'll ever want to just push it because that could be catastrophic for a lot of reasons. It's not good to blow up a rocket. You don't want to ever risk it. So I can see them just continually pushing it higher and higher as long as it's not a risk to their payloads, which I would assume they're only going to do end of life like Starlink missions, like only their own payloads and not a customer's payload if it is starting to get potentially dicey. Roberto says, what is the more difficult thing for China and ESA trying to imitate rocket reusability? What's the most difficult thing? I mean, the biggest thing that people forget is how punishing it is to come back into the atmosphere. And the Falcon 9 does retro propulsion, so it actually does light up 3 of its 9 Merlin engines right around peak temperature, like right as it's coming in back through the atmosphere. And again, remember the atmosphere only heats up. It's not air friction. That's not what makes the vehicle warm. It's compression of the air in front of the rocket. So as the rocket's re-entering, the air in front of it can't get out of the way fast enough. It compresses, and when you compress a gas, it heats up due to the laws of thermodynamics. And if you compress a gas enough and it heats up enough, it turns into a plasma, and that's the next state of matter, which is really, really, really hot. So, I think that's one of the biggest things is surviving entry. Rocket Lab's figured that out now too, even though they don't do retro propulsion, but it's really hard. And then how do you actually recover it is difficult. Landing propulsively was considered just a stupid idea almost because it just seems so far-fetched, and now SpaceX makes it look super, 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 super easy. So, I don't know. I would say it's those two things, just the re-entry aspects, and then how do you actually recover it? Rocket Lab's doing something different. We might see small launch companies like that kind of imitating that, where you're catching a rocket with a helicopter. That might be a very valid option. But other than that, propulsive landing is definitely like crazy. Nathan Ray, people say crew Starship will launch first, followed by fuel Starship. Why not launch 3 to 4 fuel Starships, transfer fuel to 1, then launch crew, fuel, and go? That's what I think will happen. Personally, that's what I basically think will happen. Will be I think you're going to want to keep I even asked that. I even asked Elon that in 2016 at the original Interplanetary Transportation System, the first time that they unveiled what is now Starship. They mentioned that the on-fuel reorbiting, and I got up. That was the terrible press conference where people were asking if they could kiss Elon or give him an electric bus or a comic book or something. Like all these, it was just it was a mess. But I was able to ask, so for these missions where you're having to refuel, would you put the crew on it and then go up and refuel over and over and over while the crew's in it? Or would you, get one fueled up and then send the crew up? And even you could even send a crew up and then just transfer them over so they aren't having to be on board while they're transferring fuel. And yeah, I do think that would make sense, especially for the early ones. But that's my opinion, and I guess we'll have to wait and see. Joe Chim says, as a new member, thank you very much. Baloo, who do you think should own space? Is it racial? Definitely not, and no one should own space. Just like no one should own. I mean, there is obviously airspace restrictions sometimes, but no one owns space. And that's the beautiful thing about space. It's the border that we all share. It's the border every single human on Earth shares that same border. You can't. Like it is our border. Like that's for all of it, for all of humanity. So when you explore space, we go in and we explore it together because, when you look, there's all these astronauts talking about the overbirth effect or the overbirth or wait, what's it called? Overview effect. What's it called? I am blanking. But yeah, the remind me, overview, right? Thank you. Overview effect. Yeah, the overview effect of being the sense that you look down and you realize that, oh my word, every single person I've ever known, everything I've ever done is right there in front of me, right? And it kind of makes it makes you feel like everything is so petty. All these, all of our wars and our hatred towards each other is so stupid because we're all just in the same house, we're all in the same little tiny rock floating through space. And I think that sentiment really can help. It's a humbling sense of, This is the border that we all share. This is our little tiny home. And then when you think about geopolitics and all this stuff and just even like tribalism, it seems so petty, right? It seems so barbaric of us. So I think that no one should own space. And I definitely think it should not be a racial thing. That I hope that we're making progress into expanding all of humanity's presence in space, no matter where you live, and gaining access and especially inspiring people that currently might not have access to space, inspiring countries to even start their own space programs. We're starting to see that more and more, and it's really, really cool. So, yeah. And Edward Wharton, holy crap. This should not be going to me. I feel like this should absolutely, this should be going up to Sean and Mandy, but Edward, okay, we should try to figure something out here. This is from Edward to Sean and Mandy. I just wanted to say sorry for the loss, for that family that lost the baby. Let's hope for good weather tomorrow once again, and sorry for your loss. Let's figure out how we can give this to Sean and Mandy for their, obviously they had to incur some costs to get down there and all that stuff. Sean and Mandy, please find a way to reach out to me, please, so I can figure out how to direct this in the right way, because that is absolutely not for me. And Edward, thank you for that, for them. Let's make that happen. Yeah, Edward, that is very nice. Everyone say thank you to Edward for that generosity, but let's make sure that generosity is going to the right place. So, yes. Thank you, Edward. Everyone say thank you, Edward. And again, Sean and Mandy will be with you. The Billiam says, how stoked are you for Monday through Wednesday? Very stoked. I'm hoping at this point now it doesn't happen on Monday, and I hope we have a clear reason for it to not happen on Monday so we can figure out how to get Ryan out here. Yeah. Yeah, I'm very excited, though. I'm ready to see Starship fly again. SN8 was awesome. I want more of that. And I think we're going to have a better stream than we did last time. So, yeah. And this says, just call me. Brian said, in a recent interview, Gwen Shotwell predicts that they will go orbital sometime this year. She said that with confidence. Probably not convenience, but confidence. What's your take? Yeah, like I said, she was saying Q3. I don't think that's possible because of how much ground infrastructure still needs to be done, and the lack of like there needs to be a massive ramp up in Raptor production in order to see Starship fly orbitally this year. Because to fly at an orbital Starship would require at least 20 engines on the booster, and then plus 6 engines on Starship. So we're looking at 26 engines. So we'll need 26 Raptor engines that are in good shape. And I'm guessing right now, just between serial number 9, 10, 11, and 15 or whatever, we're not going to have all those engines. I think we're going to lose some engines in some more test flights. And as far as so I think that'll be the limiting factor is the ground pad, the pad and the tanks being ready, but also the number of Raptors. I think it's going to be a while before they're totally have that many Raptors ready to go. All right, guys, I'm going to get out of here though, so that we are going to be trying to do another test of our systems today. We've had every time we test, we find a new flaw or something that we could probably imbigonate or strengthen. So I'm going to be working on some of that stuff. So we're going to be setting up a dress rehearsal basically so that our SN9 coverage is as good as possible. So I'm going to be working on that. So I'm going to get out of here. But then again, tomorrow, hopefully we do see this launch. Fingers crossed. And hopefully we see it. Hopefully it's clear weather and it's going to be awesome. So as far as that stuff goes, if you guys want to help me do everything possible and hopefully make better and better content, consider becoming a Patreon supporter by going to patreon.com/everydayastronaut. You guys are awesome. If you are a Patreon supporter, thank you so much. And you can, let's see. I do appreciate, everyone doing everything. You guys are awesome. And if you want to join our Discord channel or get access to scripts and things like that, patreon.com/everydayastronaut. It does mean a lot. And thank you guys so much for tuning in. Hopefully we see this tomorrow. Hopefully we see this launch happen tomorrow. So, all right, guys, that's going to do it for me. I'm Tim Dodd, the Everyday Astronaut, bringing space down to Earth for everyday people. Goodbye, everybody.